Powered by Riverside.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of In-Laws and Out of Bounds. I am half of your host, Hagen. Sitting across from me here is Emilio. We are excited to be back. Wish we were here under a little better circumstances from this weekend, but we will get through it. We'll get past it. And we do have a lot to cover today. More college football than anything. There is a lot of controversy out there this week. We've got, obviously, with Texas beating A&M, all those Shorthorn fans out there think that they should be in the playoffs. We'll get into that a little bit. Nothing else really crazy happened as far as upsets, but we do have some coaching carousels going on that we want to get into. We'll talk about every single game that went down, and we'll look at the new top 25 AP poll. We'll somewhat sprinkle forecast a little bit of these conference games going on this next weekend, and then we'll do a little bit of NFL talk. It'll be pretty short and sweet on that front probably today. But Emilio, you got anything for the folks?
Yeah, this is probably the saddest weekend of football in my entire life. I've had a rough go starting on Thursday, finishing up to Saturday, But I'll rise from the ashes like a phoenix. It'll be fine. I'm ready to go.
Emilio is hurting because the Cowboys won, and then the Longhorns, won, unfortunately. And then the Ohio State Buckeyes won. They, Landon got you there, so sorry about that. But speaking of that, we want to say thank you to our sponsor, of course, Brewster Bird Hunts, the #1 bird hunt in all of South Texas. If you are looking to get out, make sure that you hit a limit every time that you do go out. Look no further than our friends at Brewster Bird Hunts. You can catch them at brewsterbirdhunts.com. Check them out on Facebook, Instagram, any of that good stuff. Make sure that you go give them a follow and a like. We really appreciate them. But it doesn't matter if you're a single hunter or if you're 100. They'll take care of you. Best guides, best bird dogs, best birds general. So make sure you go check them out. And also, too, before I say, please go check us out. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, we're on all that stuff. We got a YouTube channel. Go give us a like and a follow. It would mean a lot. We put out a lot of snippets, reels throughout the week of this whole episode in case you just can't catch it or don't want to watch the whole thing, whichever you want. We appreciate it either way. So let's get right into it. All right, let's start with the top 25 AP poll real quick. Reason we're going to do this and the college football rankings, they kind of mirror each other pretty close over the last couple weeks, especially since the rankings have come out. You've seen these go hand in hand. There may be one or two that are, hey, we had them at 14 here, but they're 16 here, vice versa. But there's not much that moves there. So we'll go through it real quick. Number 25, you've got Missouri. 24 is Georgia Tech. 23 is Navy. 22 is Arizona. 21 is Tulane. 20 is North Texas. 19, James Madison. 18, Michigan. 17, USC. 16, Virginia. 15, Utah. 14, Texas. 13, Vanderbilt. Number 12 is Miami. Number 11 is BYU. Number 10 is Bama. 9, Notre Dame. 8, Oklahoma. 7, Texas A&M. 6, Ole Miss. 5, Texas Tech. 4, Oregon. 3, Georgia. 2, Indiana. And then 1, The Ohio State University. So, big change there is obviously A&M dropping back from 3 to 7. They've been 3 in the AP poll for a long time. And then everybody pretty much slid a spot up that was in front of them. Oklahoma stays the same. So does Notre Dame, Bama, BYU. Miami being there at number 12. And then Texas moved up 2 spots. Really interesting to see Texas there in that number 14 spot over Virginia still. Virginia has handled some business here over the past couple weekends. They did it this weekend with Virginia Tech as well. Keeping A&M behind, or putting them behind Ole Miss, that's interesting as well. I don't think that it's going to shake out like that on the college football rankings. I think looking at this, how the AP poll put them, I think A&M's going to stay in front of Ole Miss and be at that 6th spot. If I had to guess, there's even talk about them being at that 5 spot, potentially in front of Texas Tech, which is interesting if you really look at it and look at the record of their schedules. Tech lost to Arizona State, A&M lost to Texas. You could argue that Texas is a better team than Arizona State, right? So there's still that argument. Tech is going to win the Big 12 championship. So that's I'm just telling you right now. We're not even doing predictions this episode, but that's what's going to happen. So what do you think about this AP poll, Emilio?
I think the thing that is interesting to me is Miami sitting at number 12 because they aren't making their conference championship. So essentially, they're out. And there's potential for Duke, who is unranked, to make it to the college football playoff. That is wild.
100%. Yeah. That's the thing is that we talk about the college football playoff rankings and what we think they look like. And you still have Miami sitting here. There's been a ton of chatter. Obviously, right after the game on Friday when the final, seconds ticked off the clock, first thing Stark did was go straight to a reporter and he said, hey, started making his case, right? And all Texas wants to talk about is, hey, we lost to Ohio State. We should get rewarded for scheduling those guys because that's just what we did. We went and played a hard team, and they just wanted to talk about the loss to Ohio State, They didn't want to talk about the loss to Florida at all.
Yeah, they're acting like the loss to Ohio State's what's keeping them out.
100%.
That ain't what's hurting them.
No, it is. It is like they won't. We beat Vanderbilt, OU, and A&M, right? Those are our 3. And then we lost to Ohio State. That's the biggest deal. They don't want to talk about how they got dominated by Georgia. It doesn't matter if it was 14-10 in the third quarter at one point. It ended up being, 35-10 or whatever the score was. I mean, they got to play the full 60 minutes, for a reason. But there's been a ton of talk about that. And you go back to the Miami and Notre Dame conversation that we've had for multiple weeks now. And the fact that Texas wants to value their head-to-heads, saying that, hey, we're better than Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, and A&M. Regardless of what their full body of work says, they beat those 3 teams head-to-head. I'm not going to argue with that because there's nothing you can argue with that. But the committee's already shown that and said that they don't value those head-to-heads as heavy as we thought they would or what they said they would at the beginning. Because really, if you look at what Miami has done compared to Notre Dame or Miami has the head-to-head on them, right? And
Right.
then if you go back and you look at their common opponents from this year, so the 4 common opponents that Notre Dame and Miami have are NC State, Pitt, Stanford, and Syracuse, right? So Notre Dame beat NC State 36-7. Miami beat them 41-7. Very similar. Notre Dame beat Pitt 37-15. Miami beat Pitt 38-7. Notre Dame beat Stanford this past weekend. It was like 42-13. Miami beat them 42-7. And then Notre Dame beat Syracuse 70-7, and Miami beat them 38-10. So Miami has the little hiccup there on Syracuse there at the end, but it's the Orangemen. There's not much to talk about there. But if you look at this solely on those 2 right there, and you can take a Texas fans argument and you could crunch it down right in here. Besides the fact that you can just say, hey, you've got 3 losses. 3-loss team isn't going to get in no matter how quality you consider a loss. All losses are not quality. But if you look at that, they've already said, hey, we're going to put Notre Dame in over Miami because of this. Now, is that right or wrong? I think Miami should get in above Notre Dame, in my opinion. Notre Dame's not playing this weekend either because they're not in a conference. So nothing can happen to Notre Dame this week to hurt them. And Miami's not going to jump Notre Dame. They're not going to take them out of it. So that's wrong. But you also look at the other teams. Do you think that Texas should be in over Vanderbilt or BYU?
No.
Regardless of what happens to BYU this weekend, unless they lose by 50, right?
No, I don't think so. I mean, again, you have three losses. And as I understand, you beat three really good football teams, and those teams you beat are in. So I see the argument. But to that same token, those teams also didn't lose an extra game like you did. They
Mm-hmm.
took care of business where they needed to take care of business. So, it's hard to say, yeah, they need to be in. I'm not going to say that they're not one of the 12 best teams. If they play like they played this Saturday, then obviously, yeah, they probably are one of the 12 best teams. But it's the 12 best teams over the course of a season, not the 12 best teams the last 3 weeks of a season. That, again, we could get back to what's the point of playing a full season if we're only going to count what happens towards the end. And you look at their full body of work, and they didn't look good. They didn't look like one of the 12 best teams, even in some of their wins. So it's hard to say that yeah they deserve to be in, especially with the three losses. I don't see how you can put them in over a BYU or even a Vandy. I mean, yeah, they beat Vandy, but that was a close game, and it was a home game for them. And when you look at their three wins that they're really high on, those were all home games. So the committee looks at that also. If those would have been away games, I'm sure we'd probably be having a slightly different conversation. But
Yep.
you're at home, the advantage is on your side. Now, one of them is a neutral site, but let's be realistic that, that's a home game.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you look at it as a lot of those three teams that they beat have caught a lot of slack over this year, being called frauds and different things of that nature, right? So you can look at this two ways if you want to have this argument, right? Okay, so Texas is claiming these three wins are their big wins. Well, they're basically saying, hey, these are frauds. So why are these wins big then, in my opinion, right? And then you can flip it to the other side of the coin. OU lost to Ole Miss and to Texas, right? Ole Miss is number 6 in the country right now. They're in the playoffs. And then Texas is high up there. If a Texas fan considers themselves one of the best 12 teams, well, then that's a super quality loss if we're going to bring up quality losses, right? Vanderbilt
Right.
lost to Bama, which is in the top 12, and they lost to Texas, which is a super quality loss if we're going to bring that up. And then A&M's only lost to Texas, which is that super quality loss if that's what we're going to bring in. So how are you going to, if you're not going to discredit your Ohio State loss, how are you going to discredit all these other losses that are supposed to be super quality losses? All of these teams have losses, yes, but the one common factor, again, is they didn't lose to Florida. And that's the hill that everybody's going to die on that is in opposition of this. It's not a travesty that Texas is going to get left out of the playoffs. It's a travesty that they lost to Florida to allow this to happen. Because, yes, the big thing is if Texas was 10-2, then they would be right in the mix. They would have been in the mix the whole time. Like you said, it's not the fact that they lost to Ohio State or to Georgia. It's the fact that they lost to Florida, a 4-win team,
Well,
Florida. So,
I was thinking about it too when you're going through that. If you look at their big losses that they had, they were also on the road. So when they play very good teams on the road, they don't win.
yep.
They went to Ohio State and got beat. They went to Georgia and got really beat. Their three quality wins were at home. So, if I'm a committee sitting back, I'm thinking you're not going to have home field advantage in this playoff game. So, are we still going to get that same quality team?
Yeah. No, 100%. And if you look at it, you know what? I'll give Texas a round of applause here for Friday and what they did, right? They came out. If you talk about somebody wanting to truly make like hey, I want to be in the playoffs, Friday is what you look at. From just the straight pageantry that they had with all the drones in the sky and all the things that they were able to do there, to the fireworks and the light shows and all that kind of stuff. Not only did they put a good product on the field in the second half, they came out, they had a better game plan in the second half than A&M. They had more energy than A&M did in the second half. They just flat out wanted it a little more, right? But if you take that game and you put it at Kyle Field, it's probably not the same outcome, right? That in that game specifically, it makes a huge difference in the outcome of it. Yes, last year they went to Kyle Field and they won. That A&M team wasn't as grown up as this one is. I think we can all agree on that. The Texas team was a little more talented than A&M's team was last year. I think we can agree on that. Marcel Reed wasn't as, he still was a year younger. He had less experience. He didn't play that well this week. I'm not going to discredit, blame a lot of those the two interceptions that he threw at the end of the game. He was trying to force it. He was trying to make something happen quicker than it should have. And he just rifled it in there. And that is what it is. It's unfortunate that it happened like that, but they played well, in that first half. Defense had a lot of energy, but then Texas just came out and they had a better game plan. They were more motivated to get that game done. It's just how it was. You just couldn't do anything. A&M kept kicking themselves in the foot with penalties, different things like that, and they kept giving Texas chances and chances. Then Texas finally cashed in, and A&M had a lot of opportunities there to swing that momentum in their favor and get the lead and move forward, and they just couldn't get it done. So give Texas all the credit in the world. They went out Friday, and from just an atmosphere standpoint, the pageantry standpoint, the playing standpoint on the field, they did everything that they could to try to get into that playoff. So good job, but it's not enough. And better luck next year. And it shouldn't be enough. It's just the same thing as South Carolina last year. They were 9-3. Nobody wanted to play South Carolina, but they're still a 9-3 team. So, yep.
That's quite literally the perfect example of a team that was playing very well at the end of the season. And honestly, you could say that South Carolina was playing better at the end of that season because they went through a real gauntlet of a schedule and just absolutely lit it up.
Yep.
I wouldn't exactly consider Kentucky and Mississippi State a gauntlet of a schedule at that point, but win's a win.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's been a lot of that thrown around as far as like, hey, you still look at it. It was 16-13 in Kentucky. It took overtime, and then you're 45-38 at Mississippi State, and that went to overtime. Both of those are road games, right? Like you talked about. Hey, they've struggled on the road. At this point, it's the same thing that I've talked about with A&M, so I don't want to be super biased here. You just need to win the game. That's all you need to do is win the game. Doesn't really matter how great it looks, because if you get towards the end of the season where you are in a position to get in, look at Oklahoma, for example, right? Oklahoma has not won these games pretty whatsoever. What they did Saturday against LSU was ugly. They were in trouble until they hit two big plays that saved their season, right? They were able to hit a big play for 60 yards. I guess it was both times. Both were 60-yard passes just about that were big plays. Other than that, their offense was completely stagnant and was going nowhere. John Mateer threw 3 interceptions. It looked like Oklahoma.
It looked bad.
Yeah, it looked terrible, right? So, for Oklahoma to only win, what was it, 17-10 or 17-13 in Norman against a decent LSU team. Everybody's saying LSU's terrible. Their offense isn't really that great, but their defense they've got a great, athletic defense. I say great, sorry, a good athletic defense. So, but still to be at home, to have that motivation to get, hey, you're playing for your college football playoff spot, and for it to be that lackluster, that's one of those things. Oklahoma's going to have to figure that out, or they're going to get, a first-round exit. They cannot rely on their defense solely at this point because they're going to play way more talented offenses than LSU. Random guy on TikTok that wants to comment me and say, hey, look at what happened in 2000 with that Oklahoma defense. That was 25 years ago, dude, almost 26 years ago. The game's completely changed. It cannot happen the same way. I'm all big on Oklahoma's defense. I get it. They're awesome. They're elite as far as the college football defense goes, but you're at the point of the season where you have to score, and you got to figure it out, and Oklahoma's just not shown that they're able to do that. So, anyways, but overall, I don't see how Oregon jumps Tech here from 4-5. I think Tech should stay in front of Oregon. Tech did have, Oregon's one loss, I guess, is more of a quality loss than Tech's is, right? Oregon lost to Indiana. Tech lost to Arizona State. That's they're both losses. The way that Oregon lost to Indiana is bad, and the way that Tech lost to Arizona State is bad because they're losses, right? But I don't know. It's all schematics at this point. I think if Tech goes out and they do what I think they're going to do to BYU this weekend, they should be in that top 4 seed, get a bye, go to the Cotton Bowl or wherever and sit there and
I
wait.
got a question for you.
Yeah.
What happens if Alabama loses to Georgia?
Uh,
Are they out?
no, the committee has said that these conference games. Okay, you go back to the point. Do you trust the committee and what they say? Because it's just like the head-to-head scenario. They said, "Hey, we're going to honor these head-to-heads, and they're going to favor heavily." Oh my goodness, heavily. And then they turn around and it doesn't. So they're saying that conference games, what happens here, aren't going to matter, right? I mean, it's the same thing with BYU. You talk about Bama, BYU. Okay, if BYU goes out and they lose to Tech, like I think they're going to do, what's that threshold to keep them in right now? Or
Yeah.
to,
How many points do they have to lose by?
yeah, because right now BYU's not in the game, or they're not in the dance. How you can keep an 11-1 group of 4 team that has, outside of the Tech game, they've dominated their opponents. I think I saw they beat 7 teams that are bowl eligible this year,
Yeah.
and they're going to get left out. They're going to miss. They're going to miss out to a 2-loss to 3 2-loss teams, right? Oklahoma, Notre Dame, and Alabama. Now, I think if you stack outside of Oklahoma, if you stack up Notre Dame and Alabama against BYU, there's probably a route, in my opinion. Oklahoma's probably a little different. I think that, BYU can do enough on offense to where they play really hard, old school. I think they can run the ball enough, get some play action over the top to where they can make something happen and really put the emphasis on Oklahoma's offense to score. And BYU's no slouch on defense, so that could be one of those interesting games. But yeah, I mean, if Bama loses, they're probably still in. I mean, I guess it's how do they lose, right? If it's a
I
bad,
feel like
that's what it comes to
when
me. Is it are they losing by 3 or are they losing by 30? Right?
I got a feeling that when these rankings come out on Tuesday, Bama's going to be a little bit higher than that 10 spot, so that if they lose, they just drop back and they're the last team in.
Yeah, I could see them dropping Oklahoma because of how they performed on Saturday. Um, Part of me is if Bama loses bad in the conference title game, this TV exec thing gets to me all the time. I think there's too much with how much money is invested in these TV deals and these contracts. I think it's really foolish of us to sit here and say that it doesn't play a factor in some of this. And if you look at it, hey, I want to get the best, bang for my buck. Bama is a big name that do people have Bama fatigue after the Nick Saban era? Right? It's do people want to see a Vanderbilt with Diego Pavia and get milk the last bit that they can out of that cow before it's done? Do they want to see an Oklahoma team that everyone knows isn't exciting? Right? Nobody wants to see that. So do you get Miami in there to get those Florida views? They want Texas in there? We talk about the pageantry that they had Friday night with all the drones and all that kind of stuff. Texas is basically going, look what we could do for our first round playoff. Look how much excitement we could bring to the TV, right? I mean, what they did was cool. They had a lot of, celebrities on the sideline. They had a lot of, stuff going. They were all flamboyant, like all the people in Austin are, right? They were real big and flamboyant. So they're just showing whatever. So yeah, and I'm keeping it nice and PG here, but you know what I mean when I say that. So um, I don't know. I mean, how far does Ole Miss drop? Because they won the Egg Bowl, but does Lane Kiffin leaving play a factor in some of this? Like in that
Yeah, they
decision of
already. Well, again, comes down to if the committee sticks by what they had said initially, and they said that if Lane Kiffin was not going to coach them in the college football playoff, they would definitely take that into consideration. I see Ole Miss being behind A&M when those rankings come out because of Lane Kiffin not being there. So I see them being flipped. Maybe Ole Miss being number 7 and A&M being at number 6. Obviously, that's not going to matter too much, but I don't see them keeping Ole Miss ahead of A&M and at number 6 behind Tech. I just don't see them doing that, knowing good and well that it's not Lane Kiffin that's going to be on the sideline calling the plays. And that's a relatively big factor because what Ole Miss does best is score on offense. So you
Yeah,
take your ringleader out, and what do you have? Nobody really knows.
exactly. I think it's a disservice to those kids. I think they're going to be a little more fired up to go out there and play, but just because you can outplay somebody doesn't mean that you can outcoach people. Those two go hand in hand, and it's going to be really tough. But I think you see Ohio State 1, Indiana 2, Georgia 3, Tech 4, Oregon 5, A&M 6, and then you're going to see probably Ole Miss 7, Notre Dame 9, Alabama. No, wait, sorry. Notre Dame 8, Alabama 9, Oklahoma 10, BYU, Miami, Vanderbilt. Now, Vanderbilt won big, like we said they needed to. So they've done everything that they can do to get themselves in there. I could maybe even potentially see Vandy jumping BYU and Miami to get to that 11th spot. That 11 and 12 don't guarantee you anything, actually nothing at all, because that's going to go to the ACC champion, which is going to be Virginia and Duke, or and then number 12 is going to be the group of 5, which is either going to be looking like Tulane or North Texas. So that's what's pretty interesting there. And speaking of, but Tulane at this point, that's the only way they can get in there, right? Their head coach just announced that he's going to Florida, so that's another interesting one there that you look at. So, but anyway, but yeah, so let's get into some of these scores over the weekend. We'll talk about some of those coaching changes here in a little bit. Over the weekend, number 2 Indiana, they routed Purdue 56-3. They look like a heavyweight hitter. That's going to be a lot of fun to see them and Ohio State playing the Big Ten championship this next coming week. We'll see truly how heavyweight either of these teams are. We talked about it. Texas A&M went to Austin. They lost 27-17. I don't have, I said quite a bit earlier. What you have anything you want to say on this game?
I think my biggest takeaway from the game, I was surprised on how quickly we abandoned the run. And my biggest concern going into the weekend was our defense being a little bit soft with the run. And that's what Texas needed to be successful in offense. And eventually they got enough going to where it took the pressure off of Arch. We were unable to get home. And, we're a team that relies on getting home on those passing situations. So even when we did have them in 3rd and long, we were, just a second short, or we were getting penalized. And not that those penalties weren't justified. Most of them were. But again, you get into that home field advantage of a lot of those false starts were killing drives. A lot of those PIs, some of them were maybe a little bit closer. If you're not, if you're not an away team, maybe you don't get those. But I mean, at the end of the day, the Aggies didn't play as good as they needed to. I think that was finally us not putting a full game together, coming and biting us in the ass is what it boiled down to.
Yeah.
And I was really just surprised on how quickly we just gave up on the run game. But again, that goes into a rivalry game where the second you start to feel like it's slipping away, you start pressing a little bit. You start trying to look for some magic to win the momentum back and get the crowd to simmer down a little bit. And so you throw a little bit more, and that's not who we are as a team. We're not a team that's going to go out there and light it up in the passing game. We can, but it's short to intermediate routes going across the middle and somebody making a play, not deep bombs that happen. So, they took us out of our game, and I was thoroughly impressed by what Texas was able to do and thoroughly disappointed in what we put out there. But it is what it is. I mean, it's one game. Hopefully the Aggies, this time off will do them some good. And if you're Texas, you got a lot to build on going into next year.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with the fact of them getting off the run. I mean, they went into it and then they got off of it and they tried to get back to it and then they got off of it. And, the fact that that Reuben Owens only had 13 carries, 45 yards. E.J. Smith had 4 carries for 27 yards. So your 2 running backs, you're only giving them the ball, 13 times. Morrow had 2 carries. So in total, they're running the ball 19 times. That's pretty disheartening in that fact. Marcel Reed had 12 carries, but a lot of those were scrambles, right? They weren't really so much true quarterback run plays. There were a few, but to get off of that, eh, that is disheartening to see that. You don't want, if Marcel Reed's dropping back 32 times like he did this past weekend, that's really not the game that we want to play. He does have a good quality arm. He can throw it down the field, but he's still in that development stage of truly making decisions and making sure that he gets the ball there in a timely manner and quick enough. And when I say quick enough, I mean really seeing the play before the play, essentially, is what it really looks like in my eyes. So that's tough. In most of those instances, he has a big enough arm to push it down the field, but with us not, running the ball as efficiently as we want, Texas was able to play a little further back into that, not allowing those gaps to open up there. I mean, on the other side of the ball, Wisner coming out, he had 19 carries for 155 yards. There was a few big runs there that were just heartbreaking, right? A&M was really pressing it up the field. If you looked at it, especially in that second quarter going towards the half, they were really getting pressure in that backfield, really pushing up there. There was a lot of gap misassignments and just poor mechanics. I say mechanics, just staying true to where you need to be, right? Making sure that the
Yeah.
A gap's taken care of and those things, and trying to scoot over and be I guess hero ball is kind of what you want. That's probably a bad term for it, but essentially is what
No,
we're
I
trying.
think that's a
What I'm trying to say.
perfect
That's
term.
Yeah, it's just like you're trying to make the big play versus doing the right thing and staying in your gap, controlling those lanes, letting the linebackers, come and scoop up whatever that is after that, because you saw it a lot on Saturday where he would be in an A gap and they're like, oh, hey, I'm going to stun over here to the, over here to the BEC, wherever they were at that time. And then what he'd do, he'd hop right there and then he'd skip over and he'd be gone, right? He'd have three different lanes and the linebacker's trying to work over. And then next thing you know, he's got a defensive tackle on his lap and he can't get anywhere. So that was pretty disheartening to see. Hopefully they can clear and clean a lot of that up. Arch Manning, they made him look like he was an actual Manning. They should have, when they got pressure on him, he was uncomfortable. He didn't make a lot of good plays. They were pushing up the field quite a bit. They did a really good job of moving up in the pocket versus going side to side. And once he moved up in that pocket, it was opening like the Red Sea. He was able to get a lot of key first downs. They probably should have kept somebody a little more QB spy-ish, playing a zone kind of a little closer to the line of scrimmage to put that pressure on him to force him to make a throw. But yeah, so it was tough. Give Texas the credit. They won. It is what it is. I think if you play that game, 10 times, they probably win it 8 times, or they probably win it 2 times out of the 10. But yeah, so I don't think they could bring that kind of energy again. Get them in the playoffs. Let them play A&M first game, but in College Station. Let's go. Let's see what happens. Run it back. See what happens. But anyways, Georgia played Georgia Tech this weekend. It was 16-9. This game was way closer than I thought it was going to be. Georgia Tech, they came to play. They just could not get a lick of offense going. If you looked at the box score here, Haynes King, he was 19 of 27, 181 yards, no touchdowns, and one interception. He also ran the ball 10 times for 39 yards, no touchdowns. They were limited to field goals from Georgia Tech. They had a chance right at the end. They got a lot of chunks, a big chunks of yard. They threw it toward the end zone, and Georgia was able to bat it down. On the other side of the ball, super shocking here. I thought Gunnar Stockton was going to have a huge game, but he was 11 of 21, 70 yards, one touchdown, one interception. As down at the bottom, Nate Frazier ran the ball 16 times for 108 yards, no touchdowns. They ran the ball for 190 yards total as a team on Georgia's side, and they just played defense. They did what they can do. They had better athletes than Georgia Tech does. Georgia Tech, that's a program on the rise. They're going to be good next year too, I think, depending on what happens in their quarterback position. But yeah, Georgia was just too much for them to handle, and yeah, you got to score touchdowns. If you get get held to field goals. That's a hard way to live, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think this score is another indication of what a rivalry game can do for a team because Georgia Tech had been playing poorly. I mean, bad.
Yep.
Winning games against really bad teams, but doing it in super ugly fashion. Losing to some bad teams, and they came out with a different type of intensity, more of what we've seen in the early part of the season. But I think, again, that just goes back to what a rivalry game can do. Everybody plays a little bit harder, you get a little bit more excited, and it's just controlling it. And they did relatively well, but again, Georgia's too stout. Sometimes it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it just doesn't matter at times for sure. So, the Egg Bowl also happened on Friday. You had Ole Miss going to Starkville in the last game of the Lane Kiffin era. It was this game was 38-19. It was kind of close there for a little while. Then Ole Miss was able to pull away and do it. Trinidad Chambliss was 23 of 34, 359 yards and 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Kevon Lacey ran the ball 27 times for 143 yards and 1 touchdown. That was what they've been able to do all year, really, when they've had big games and able to score. It's been the combination of Chambliss and Lacey on that front. On the other side, Kamario Taylor for Mississippi State was 15 of 31, 178 yards, no touchdowns, and 1 interception. Kamario Taylor also added 20 carries for a $173 and 2 touchdowns. So he made it happen with his legs on the ground. He had 5 less rushing yards as he did passing yards. That's pretty wild to see. You don't normally see that, but
I think he's a true freshman too, so
you better
it's
watch
kind of
out.
what.
Well, he's probably going to be able to get Ole Miss next year because we'll see what Lane Kiffin does with all these boys if he can get a lot of them to transfer to LSU. I think not so much to speak on the game, but to more speak on Lane Kiffin here. He got upset. I think it's a perfect way to say this, and I apologize if these words that are fixing to come out of my mouth are a little vulgar. So I try not to do this, but radio edit on this one right here. I think it's right the way that a Ole Miss reporter put it on. I think it was Thursday before the game. You can't turn a hoe into a housewife, and Lane Kiffin is he's proven that he's a hoe, and he went to LSU for the tune of $100 million, which one of us is going to sit here and say, hey, I wouldn't go for $100 million either? But the rumor is that Ole Miss offered the same. They were gonna match on it. I don't know exactly if that's true or not, but it doesn't come down so much to money because there's plenty of Ole Miss alumni that want to see Ole Miss succeed. There's plenty of money that they could have matched that. They could have matched it in recruiting. They have great facilities. I understand Ole Miss is a B tier SEC team when it comes to it. LSU is A tier. Totally understand it. But when you've been with a team like this for this long, you've had 3 consecutive 10-win seasons at least. You're on the verge of going into the college football playoffs with probably a pretty favorable schedule, honestly, to get into that second, third round. And then to turn your back on your team like this, especially with all the drama the way that it happened, for it to happen for 2 weeks, shame on Lane Kiffin, shame on Ole Miss as well as a program. How do you let your leader, parade around like this, just being like, oh well, I haven't made my decision, I'm going to make my decision? That's not fair to anybody. That's not fair to your fan base, your student body, the assistant coaches, the kids that are thinking about recruiting there. All you did was hurt your recruits for the next season and the years after that. And then you hurt the kids that are there that maybe they were on the fence already about leaving. And now it's like, hey, our own star head coach doesn't want to be here. How could I be a star here? Essentially is what it comes after. But shame on those two. They should have been like, hey, are you going to be with us or are you not going to be with us? Because if you're not and you're going to drag this out for 2 weeks, we don't want you here. We don't want you spoiling our program. And Lane Kiffin should have been man enough to say, hey, you know what? I am looking at these other job opportunities. I'm not going to drag my feet on this and put this school through this, and moved on. So he should have waited until after the season was over. We talk about how, kids transferring in January. They pushed it back from December to January, that they're transferring in the middle of the playoffs, and the recruiting's going on here and there. Nothing's going to change if these head coaches can get away with this stuff. The schedule of how college football works is terrible. Just
No.
the whole way that they do recruiting, and then they do transfer portal, and then you can have a coach who's in the middle of a national championship run flirting with other schools just because this other school wants to get something done. They should have waited. This should have not happened like this. Bad decision. I had some respect for Lane Kiffin. He's at LSU now. I have even that less of a respect for him because of the way that he handled this stuff. I think I don't know. It just could have been done a lot different, right?
Yeah, I think this is one of those regards where the NFL has it figured out as far as when you can talk to a coach,
Yep.
and it doesn't start until after the season's over.
Yep.
So I think this is a precedent that needs to be set in college ball because it wasn't just Lane this go round, but it's crazy because you shouldn't be allowed to go and offer a coach a bunch of money when they still have they already started talking when he still had 2-3 games left in the season.
Yep.
And that's
Yep.
just the regular season. It's ridiculous. And to your point, the coaches are the first ones to start whining about these players that, they don't have any loyalty anymore, and they're the first ones out the door if they don't get playing time. And it's the same, it's the same exact thing. It's the same exact concept. And obviously the coaches, not every coach that's complaining about it is leaving in the middle of the season, but it's crazy that this can happen because quite honestly, I don't know if it was, I think it was Marty, the old boy with the mohawk and the southern accent on ESPN.
Oh, Marty Smith. Yeah.
Yeah, he was covering it all day long like a madman, and
Yeah.
he said the decision came down to if Lane Kiffin thought he could win a national championship at Ole Miss or LSU. And I'm thinking, this Ole Miss team is actually pretty good. Why wouldn't you just? I mean, you spent 6 years there. Why wouldn't you just see it through if it's the same amount of money? Like, to me, if you're trying to build a legacy and that's what you're after is winning national championships, you'd have more of a legacy staying there and doing it with that group than what you will leaving to LSU. And maybe he wins one next year. Who knows at LSU? But is it going to be the same because you bailed and brought half the team with you? It doesn't have that same tune. You would have been better off staying at Ole Miss, making a deep little run, and then maybe bringing over some more players the next year, and then who knows from there. I think it's I don't know. I like Lane Kiffin, but this is who Lane Kiffin is. It's who he's been from the start. He's always been an enigma in some sense of the word, but I'm not surprised by his antics. He loves the spotlight. He's always loved the spotlight. He's the guy that will trash talk players. He's the guy that will, get his Twitter fingers going. That's who he is. He's a spotlight guy, and what better way to put the spotlight on you than do some antics like this?
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know what legacy looks like nowadays with college football coaches. It's, hey, I won the national championship, but it's also you look at how much money did they spend on their roster, and you have to do it. I understand it, but and maybe even so back in the day, they were giving players stuff, but everybody was giving it to them. It's just one of those things. If you win at Ole Miss, your legacy's different than if you win at LSU. I know he went to LSU because, hey, much better recruiting. You're in the state of Louisiana. There's more talent there, blah, blah, blah. But, yeah, the way it happened, it is Lane Kiffin. He's done it with Tennessee. He did it with USC. He did it with the Raiders. I mean, he's been around the block. He's going to coach every, SEC school before it's all said and done, more than likely. But I think just everybody's respect for him has gone down the drain a little bit. Maybe not fully down the drain, but it's gone down a little bit too. If you see how he was treated as he was getting on a plane in Oxford, I don't know if you saw that video. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. But yeah, he got booed out of town literally. So, anyways, yeah, Utah went over to Kansas and they were able to come out with a win. This was a sneaky win. They almost got upset here, but they were able to get out of there with a 31-21 win, keeping their playoff hopes alive. Arizona takes down Arizona State 23-7. they win the territorial battle there. Neither of those teams are in the playoff hunt, but more for pride right there. Getting into Saturday, the big game, the college game day of the week, the big noon kickoff game, the whatever you want to call it, the game. The Ohio State University went up to Ann Arbor and took down the Michigan Wolverines by a tune of 27-9. Julian Sayin went 19 of 26 for 233 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Bo Jackson ran the ball 22 times for 117 yards. They ran the ball 47 times for 186 yards as a offense. And they were tough yards to come by. On the Michigan side, Bryce Underwood went 8 of 18 for 63 yards, no interceptions and 1 touchdown. Jordan Marshall ran the ball 7 times for 61 yards. They ran the ball for 100 yards even as a team on 24 attempts. Michigan as an offense was not able to get anything going. All 9 of the points came from field goals. Like I said earlier, it's just not a way for you to win. So, yeah, Michigan was able to keep this one close for a little while, but Ohio State just muscled through and just proved they were the better team here. So,
Yeah, Michigan had every opportunity to continue their streak.
yep.
Whenever you start settling, I mean, if you get all the way down to a red zone on a defense like that, you have to make the most of it and come away with a touchdown.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Especially in a situation like that, the weather is starting to get bad. You can't start settling for field goals early. I think Michigan, they had a lead of 6-0 going halfway into the second. And if those were touchdowns instead of field goals, I feel like we're having a different conversation. But, I mean, Ohio State was a very good team. They proved that it was going to come down to Michigan's offense could produce because we know what Michigan can do on defense. And Bryce Underwood has a lot of learning and growing up to do and developing to do. And, Michigan, I don't think they're going away, but yeah, it's disappointing. It's disappointing, but Michigan will be back. They got some work to do. Sharon Moore, his season started off weird. I got faith that the Big Blue, they'll be back with full force.
Yeah, the work is to figure out what to do with Bryce Underwood because that old boy hadn't looked sharp for a while.
I think the key for me here, though, is that Ohio State's defense is very, very good. But if somebody can figure out a way like Wink Martindale was doing in that first half of slowing down Jeremiah Smith, their offense can be had, I think was my takeaway. But that defense that's a real deal.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's obviously always.
I'm very excited to see them go up against that Indiana offense.
No, that'll be a lot of fun. That's going to be a fun game. It really is. Ohio State versus Indiana. It's going to be a lot of fun to see what both those teams can do. Kirk Signelli, get out there, have him coaching against Ryan Day, right? 2 good coaches that are going to be going. But Ohio State, they just proved you go to a packed house like the big house and a lot of energy there. Struggle, but be able to get through it, put points on the board, and they did it. Not at first they didn't do so well, but they started dominating and they just played really physical, tough football and got through it in the snow and were able to do it. So, you got any apologies that you want to say to Landon there?
Absolutely not.
Didn't expect anything less there. Number 5, Texas Tech went to West Virginia, and they came out victorious 49-0. They just dog walked them. Morton only played, I don't think he played the full game, and their backup threw 4 passes, and 2 of them were for touchdowns. So that'll tell you the kind of day that Tech was having over there. Oregon went to Washington and was able to take down the Huskies 26-14. This game was pretty close for the most while. Washington just didn't have enough offensive power to get it done. Dante Moore was 20 of 19, 286 yards and 1 touchdown. They only ran the ball for 106 yards as a team. On the opposite side of the ball, Damon Williams was 15 to 30 for 129, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions for the Huskies. Adam Muhammad ran the ball 14 times for 105, no touchdowns. But yeah, the Ducks went up there and did what they needed to do. Got a win against a good Husky team that is overlooked a little bit, and they came out of it, survived. They're going to make the college football playoffs there. So good for them. Oklahoma is able to survive LSU 17 to 13. We talked about this game a little bit earlier, but man, Oklahoma's got to figure out some offense if they want something to go on. I mean, John Mateer was 23 of 38 for 318, 2 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. But a lot of those touchdowns were tough. If you look at it, he threw a 58-yard touchdown to Signetti, who had 9 catches, 121 yards, and a touchdown. And then his other one was Deion Burks, who had 4 catches for 61 yards, a touchdown. The long touchdown of 45 yards there. On the other side, Van Burden was 14 of 25 for 96 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. They ran the ball for 85 yards total as a team for the Tigers. I didn't talk about Oklahoma's rushing attack. They ran the ball 28 times for 75 yards as a team. That's one of those things that Mateer, he did have a lot of yards offensively combined, but if you really look at, their drives, and they punted 7 times, I think it was Saturday. I think 7 or 8 times. It was quite a few. That's a lot of punts. He was able to stack up a lot of yards, but really he had 2 long touchdowns that were in the second half of the game. A lot of worthless, rack up yards other than that, and they couldn't get anything going rushing wise. LSU had a really good game plan on the defensive side to come in. LSU's just terrible on offense as well, but Oklahoma's got to figure it out before this playoff starts. So,
boy, do they. That offense is bad.
Oh, yeah.
It's bad, and they're going to have a real tough time getting past that first round if they can't figure something out.
Yes. Yes, they are. Yes, sir. Notre Dame went to California and took on Stanford. They came out with the victory of 49 to 20. They had a day there. Jeremiah Love was pretty quiet, 14 carries, 66 yards, and 1 touchdown. C.J. Carr was 17 to 27, 205, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. They lit up the stat sheet all the way across, though. Even they got some backup quarterback got in there, got some playing time. Elijah Brown for Stanford was 18 to 37, 204, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. They ran the ball only for 86 yards on 30 attempts as a team, but Stanford's just no win-oh. Andrew Luck, the GM of that organization, needs to get some players in there. I think they got a new coach finally, so we'll see what they
have a new head coach, so maybe next year.
Maybe next year. That's what they all say, right? Number 10, Alabama escapes Auburn with a 27-20 victory thanks to a Simpson-Horton connection. Ty Simpson and Isaiah Horton connected 3 times for touchdowns. And yeah, Notre Dame, I'm still thinking about them. Alabama is able to escape Auburn and get the win. Ty Simpson was 19 of 35 for 122, 3 touchdowns. They ran the ball for 158 yards on 38 carries as a team. And then Isaiah Horton caught all 3 of those touchdowns, 5 catches for 35 yards. That's a Devontae Adams stat line right there, right? He only throw him the ball when we're inside the 10, basically. On the other side of the ball, Ashton Daniels was 18 of 39 for 259, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He also had 23 carries for $108, no touchdowns as a team. They ran the ball 36 times for 152 and a touchdown. So Auburn kept it close here. They tried to make something happen. I mean, they got as close as they could. At one point, they were down 17-0 as well. So they came storming back. They tied it up in the fourth quarter. They got it to 20-20, and then Alabama went and scored another touchdown on the board, and Auburn fumbled it. They had a 12-play drive going. And then they turned around and fumbled it. I think it was at the it was like at the Alabama 20 as well. They were down in there. They were pushing it, and then they fumbled it, and then they got the ball back with like 12 seconds to go, and they just couldn't get anything done. So it was tough. So Auburn had their chances, Bama got it done in the Iron Bowl. We talk about rivalry games, and that was a tough one that you never know what's going to happen there. So, Kalen DeBoer, he's ready to roll in those playoffs, huh? Black hoodie and all.
I don't know that offense has hit a little bit of a slide. I don't know what's going on with them. They got a month off, so no, they don't because they play on Saturday. So they got some figuring out to do also before this playoff starts.
Big time. BYU takes care of UCF 41-21. They'll be playing in the Big 12 championship this week. Miami, number 12 Miami, downs number 22 Pittsburgh 38-7. Pitt just never showed up. Miami flexed their muscles, and they made a strong case to the committee this week. I mean, they were trying to prove it as much as anybody else. Number 14 went to Knoxville to take on number 19 Tennessee, and Vanderbilt came out with that win 45-24. If you look at the box score here, Diego Pavia was 18 of 28, 268, one touchdown, two interceptions. He also ran the ball 20 times for $165 and a touchdown. That touchdown run really sealed the deal there, and he let everybody know he stood back, hit that Heisman pose real good. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Cedric Alexander also ran the ball 10 times for $115, and he had 3 touchdowns on the ground. On the other side line, Joey Aguilar was 29 of 14 for $299 and a touchdown. Deshaun Bishop ran the ball 20 times for 97 yards and 2 touchdowns. There was a real close game for a while, and then it got down to it was about 31-24, and then Vanderbilt scored, and then they scored again, and Tennessee just could never catch up. Vanderbilt put that real big gap in between them and Tennessee. Like we said, they probably needed to win by at least 14. They won by 21, and we'll see. We'll see what the committee thinks of that. I think that's a good win. That's the first time that Vanderbilt's ever beat a ranked Tennessee team in Knoxville as well.
Yeah. If we were back to that argument that we had earlier, if you're talking about quality losses, they lost to Alabama by a score and they lost to Texas by, 3 points?
Yep.
So Vandy's got just as much of a case, if not a better case, than some of these other teams that think they should be in. So
yep.
I think Vandy did what they needed to do. They won these last 2 games pretty decisively. This one obviously is way more impressive because Tennessee's been a good team. So we'll see.
Yeah. I think you can make a case for Vandy over Oklahoma. Their big thing's going to be they're not going to get over Alabama. And I guess, you look at that too, and you really start comparing head-to-heads like you should. Oklahoma beat Alabama. Alabama beat Vanderbilt. So, if so, fact so, Vanderbilt's out on that fact. Right.
Yeah.
USC took care of business against UCLA 29-10. No shocker there. Virginia does what they need to against Virginia Tech 27-21. California gets the upset over SMU, keeping them out of the ACC title game 38-35. I bet those SMU alum are pretty mad for how much money they've spent on that and to not even get to the championship game once again. And then Tulane takes care of business against Charlotte 27-0. So that wraps that up there just as far as the games. If we look forward to what we've got, so your ACC championship game is going to be Duke versus Virginia. Big 10 is Indiana versus Ohio State. Big 12, you've got BYU versus Tech. And then SEC championship, you've got Georgia versus Alabama. And then in the American Conference, it's going to be North Texas versus Tulane for most likely that number 12 seed, and to see who goes to play it, Eugene or Lubbock or whoever it's going to be at that 5 seed. So that'll be a lot. If we look at the other coaches that we didn't touch on here as far as who changed, there was 5 different coaches that changed over here. So Arkansas hired Memphis' head coach Ryan Silverfield. Auburn hired South Florida's coach Alex Golish. Florida hired Tulane's coach John Summerall. I haven't seen if they're going to let him coach further or not through the season. That's something that I should probably look. But that's another one of those deals. He's right there on the cusp of having a huge year for Tulane. I'm not going to fault somebody from going from Tulane to Florida because that is a major jump in your career right there. How many seasons can you really look at Tulane and say, hey, I can consistently have a group of 5 team get in? And then when do they ever make that change to, hey, we're not going to let a group of 5 in? Maybe that won't change if they do get to this 16 team playoff like they're talking about, but you never know. And then Lane Kiffin going to LSU, obviously. Ole Miss did promote Peter Golding to head coach in the wake of that. There was a lot of Ole Miss players that were upset, so maybe you can keep them together. So pretty wild to see these teams. Some of them, they don't matter so much. They do have some bowl games to play for, but Tulane having that big season, and for their head coach to go elsewhere, that's just one of those things that you're like, man, why not wait for a little bit? So have a handshake agreement and move on. So
Yeah.
yeah, you got anything else for college football right there?
No, I'm excited about the conference championships. Really looking forward to the Indiana and Ohio State one more than anything. Also looking forward to see what BYU does differently this go around. That first one, LJ Martin was fresh off an injury. Now he's had a couple games to get his legs underneath him. And not that that's going to make a huge difference, but it has the potential to. So I'm interested in that one. And then that Tulane and North Texas game. I've been high on the Mean Green. They're a very exciting offense, so I'm hoping that they pull out an upset in this one and maybe get a chance at that college football playoffs themselves.
North Texas versus A&M in College Station.
Hell yeah, brother. Come
Man,
on.
that'd be wild. That'd be wild. Winner goes to play Tech in the Cotton Bowl. That's how that needs to happen. So that no matter what, you got back-to-back Texas matchups there. Yeah, I'm excited to see Tech and BYU. I'll watch that one more than likely. I think Tech's going to dominate that one, but we'll get into that on the Wednesday show. I probably won't watch Georgia and Alabama because my feelings are too hurt about that. So nonetheless, and then Indiana, Ohio State. I'll definitely stick around for that one because Duke and Virginia are going to be playing at the same time, and who gives a damn about that? So,
Man, Duke having a chance without being a ranked team is the craziest thing to me. That is just
man,
and Manny Diaz saying that they deserve a chance to be that's crazy.
Wouldn't it be poetic if Duke won, then the committee would find a reason for Duke to go play A&M so Elko gets to play them.
Boy,
that would be something right there.
Truly something.
We'll take it. But anyways, all right. Let's get over to Sunday if you're good through Saturday.
Good.
I think we've touched on everything that we need to. If not, we'll get to it the next episode. So,
yep.
All right. Over to Sunday. Let's get into it right now. Looking at this, the Broncos are playing the Commanders Sunday Night Football. It is 33 seconds left. The Commanders have the ball. They're down 3. They are they're at the Denver 20 right now. So 23 seconds left. We'll see. We'll keep in touch there, see how that one pans out. But you want to talk about any of the games before this? Obviously Thursday, most of y'all, we had Thanksgiving. The Packers beat the Lions 31-24. The Cowboys beat the Chiefs 31-28, and then the Bengals crushed the Ravens 32-14. That's what it is. Friday, the Bears were able to beat the Eagles 24-15. The Bears move into that number 1 seed in the NFC right now. Pretty shocking right there to see that. But there's a lot of movement there that can still be had. The Cowboys are 2 games back of the Eagles now. The Packers are only half a game or 1 game behind the Bears, with the Lions still right there at 7-5. The Bengals move into 2 games of the Ravens.
The Bengals are alive.
The Bengals are alive, especially if they play the way that they did. And, the Ravens, Lamar gave them a little bit of a boost when they came back. I think they made teams game plan a little different. They've, Derrick Henry has been able to run the ball a little more just because people have been a little more scared of Lamar's arm and different things, and rightfully so. But the Ravens, they're not playing good whatsoever. I mean, their defense is atrocious. They can't really move the ball down the field that well passing, so it'd be interesting to see. here.
Yeah, Lamar played surprisingly bad in that one. But I think the thing that shook me the most was I don't know how Joe Burrow makes your defense better, but for some reason, this looked like a very different Cincinnati Bengals defense.
It's it's
Just,
just the spark.
it's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's just the spark you get when your franchise quarterback comes back. Everybody feels more confident, feels like they can go out there and do just a little bit more because Joe Burrow's going to be there to bail them out when they need him. So they played well. That was really wild to see. The Lions got some things to do as far as the Packers have just handled them this year. They were able to move the ball, but their defense doesn't look as well as it had earlier in the year. Something that you've come to expect, I guess, from a Dan Campbell Lions team. So that's interesting to see. We'll see that this Thursday as they take on the Cowboys. Cowboys have found something. I'll get a little more hyped into it as far as it goes. If we were recording this on Thanksgiving, man, I ought to talk for 50 minutes straight just about this, that, and the other. But they found something. The offense looks really well, like they have all year, really. The defense getting Quentin Williams that has come over. Logan Wilson's helped out, getting healthy within Revel and Overshown, being able to move guys in and out. You've got Trayvon Diggs. It looks like he's going to come back this Thursday for this Lions game. You get him into the mix, how they've been rotating guys in and out. And that secondary, it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out. But Dallas has played a lot of five down man on that line. They've been able to generate a little more pressure. They've been a little more athletic on the back end that has allowed them to be that to do more. Matt Eberflus is coaching. He's able to scheme a little better. It's crazy how much easier it is for you to coach when you have good athletes on the field, right? So we'll see what happens there. It'll be really interesting. I think this is still going to be. I know this is still going to be a really good test for the Cowboys with Jamar Gibbs coming in, and you still got St. Brown, James Williams. You've got Montgomery, Sam Laporta, all those guys. So we'll see what happens. What happens then? We'll react. We'll talk about that game and our predictions on the next episode. But they are through two of the three games that everybody said they were going to lose. So we'll see. They've got a long way to go. Only 6-5-1. There's a lot ahead there that they need to do. But
I was
early, go ahead.
thoroughly impressed with what they put on display on that game.
That it's normally a game they lose, right?
I thoroughly impressed. I mean,
Yeah.
from start to finish, they played very well defensively. I still don't trust their secondary. I feel like you are starting to be a little bit. I'll give you this. They definitely have gone from being god awful to being okay.
Well, and that's all we've asked for all year is just be the middle of the pack. You don't have to be the 2000s Ravens or the 85 Bears. Yeah, their defense is still a liability, but I look at it at the same time as no matter how bad you think the Chiefs are, Patrick Mahomes is still on that offense, and Patrick Mahomes is still really good, and he can make the best secondary look elementary at times, right?
Yeah.
So I take a lot of that into account when I think about that. It's like, hey, it's Mahomes. Like he makes throws where he's literally sideways, parallel with the field, and he's throwing it 50 yards down, and it's on a dot.
That
He
one
did
was
that.
nuts. That was disgusting.
That was nasty. He got right at Quentin Williams and still tripped and threw it 50 yards, and the guy caught it right through the numbers, right between the numbers. So, there's a lot of that stuff you just got to be like, man, it's Mahomes. What are you going to do? So,
I think
yeah.
I think they have their offense is very good, and their defense. If they can get that secondary into a slightly better spot than where they're at, I think this is a team that could be dangerous if they can get through this stretch of the season. Now, that's still a lot of ifs to figure out, but this test will be good for them. This one with the Lions, I don't know how that one's going to go because the Lions, like you mentioned, not quite the same, but still a lot there.
Still the Lions. They still got a lot of firepower on offense, and they've had the Cowboys' number the past couple times, right?
Their defense looked bad,
one of those. Yeah, but this is kind of one of those rivalry games. It's not really a rivalry game, right? The Lions, I think they get up for the Cowboys just because of what happened the one year when Dan Skipper didn't check in, and
he did check in.
He didn't check in.
I remember.
Whatever. No, whatever. So, anyways, I think that's one of those games. But the Cowboys are going to have to come out and prove it. I don't know. Hopefully they'll be ready and they'll be ready to go. But they've got the Lions still. They've got the Chargers. They've got the Vikings. Then you got to still play um, the Commanders and the Giants as well. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. There's one team I think I may be missing in that lineup. Maybe not. Who did I say? The Lions, Chargers,
Vikings.
Vikings. I think there's one team I'm missing. Anyways, but getting into early Sunday, the 49ers take down the Browns in Shador Sanders' true first start, 26 to 8, excuse me. Shador, they were up 6-7 at one point, and you're thinking everybody's like, man, Shador's going to win this game, and not so fast, my friend. Shador was 16 to 25 for 149 and a touchdown on the ground. Quinshon Judkins had 23 carries for 91 yards, no touchdowns. Just the Browns being the Browns, they had one good drive. They put it out there, and it was Myles Garrett was able to add a sack to his total, getting him to 19 and a half sacks, I think it is already. So he's inching closer. I think he's like 3 sacks, within 3 sacks of the all-time record, and he's still got 6 games to go. So
Yeah.
he's got a little while to get there. But yeah, the Niners they went up there and they took care of business like they're supposed to. Brock Purdy only had 168 yards, 1 touchdown on the ground. They only ran 98 yards or 91 yards total as a team. So wasn't a crazy, offensive display, but they did what they needed to. So it's the Browns. The Jaguars take down the Titans 25-3. This one got ugly really quick, I think. Basically, because Trevor Lawrence is on my fantasy team, and I looked and I'm like, damn, it's only the first quarter and he's got 20 points. So 16 to 27, 229, and 2 touchdowns. He did that early and often, and Cam Ward and the Titans just aren't able to get anything go. 67 yards rushing as a team and 141 yards passing, so just nothing there.
I think the Jags are in first place in that division now.
I think they are, yep, because the Colts
crazy.
dropped another. Yep. The Colts dropped another game, which is our next one. The Texans took down the Colts 20-16. The Texans are right there. They're within a game of the Colts now. They're 7-5. The Colts are 8-4 after dropping back-to-back losses because they lost the week before to Kansas City, and now they've lost to the Texans. It's something that they have not wanted to do here. But Daniel Jones dealing with that, the fibula injury, does that play a big factor into it? Does it not? The Texans have a really good defense. Have a great defense. As far as the year goes, probably the best in the National Football League right now. C.J. Stroud came back in this game. He was able to put on a little bit of a performance, 22 of 35 for 276. He had no touchdowns and an interception. They ran for 2 touchdowns on the ground. Had a couple field goals there on the other side of the ball. Daniel Jones was 14 of 27 for 201, 2 touchdowns. And then Jonathan Taylor had 85 yards on the ground there to help out. But it was a closely contested game. A couple field goals there, it looks like that were really the difference. So we'll see what the Colts can do if they can bounce back or if they're just going to fall apart. The Dolphins are able to hold off the Saints 21-17. Saints continue their march trying to get to the number 1 pick. It doesn't look like they're going to get there if the Titans are going to get back-to-back. But the Jets take down the Falcons for third win of the season, 27-24. This was Tyrod Taylor, I believe, that played in this game. Yeah, Tyrod Taylor, yep. 19 of 33 for 172 and a touchdown. Breece Hall had 19 carries for 68 yards and a touchdown. Kirk Cousins for the Falcons, 21 of 33, 234, 1 touchdown. And then Bijan Robinson carried the ball 23 times for a $142 and a touchdown. Tough when you waste the running back's talent in a game like that and lose to a Jets team especially. But the Falcons are the Falcons. They're pretty bad. Upset of the week, the Panthers take down the visiting Los Angeles Rams here, 31-28. Bryce Young, he had 3 touchdown passes on the day, 15 of 20 for 206 and 3 touchdowns. He was pretty efficient there. The ground game was carried it 40 times for 164, with Chubba Hubert leading the way there with 83 yards. Rico Dow added another 58 yards on the ground. No touchdowns on the ground, though. Matthew Stafford was 18 of 28 for 243, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Blake Corum led the rushing attack with 7 carries for 81 yards and a touchdown. Kareem Williams added another 72 yards and a touchdown for the team there. Puka Nacua had a quiet day, only 72 yards catching, and then Devontae Adams had 4 catches for 58 yards and 2 touchdowns. So that's pretty surprising. The Panthers are able to keep their playoff hopes alive. They were sitting at 6-6. If they would have gone to 6-7, that'd have been pretty tough. But now they're 7-6. That's very helpful with the Bucks beating the Cardinals today 20-17. So if you look at those two sitting there right now, they're both 7-5. Or actually, sorry, the Bucks are 7-5. The Panthers are 7-6, so the Bucks have a half game lead on them. They still remain to play again this year, so that'll be big. Man, in this Bucks game, Jacoby Brissett threw the ball another 40 times. They're just wearing that poor guy's arm out. He did throw for 301, 2 touchdowns and a pick, but I think this is like the third game in a row that he's thrown the ball at least 40 times.
That's crazy.
That's Jacoby Brissett too. He's no spring chicken either. I mean, how long has he been around? Like 12
He's been
years?
around a while.
Yeah,
He's been around the block.
it's been a lot. Baker Mayfield was 18 of 28 for a $194 and a touchdown. Bucky Irving came back today, 17 carries for 61 yards and adding a touchdown on the ground. So maybe the Bucks can try to find some consistency here, especially with their top rusher being back. See if Mayfield can get healthy and keep going. But yeah, the Cardinals, poor Jacoby Brissett throwing the ball so many times. The Vikings get embarrassed again, traveling to Seattle, and they lose by a score of 26-0. JJ McCarthy didn't play this game. It was Mike Brosmer. He was 19 of 30 for a $126, no touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. It's a bad day when your franchise wide receiver has 2 catches for 4 yards.
It's a bad day when you got to start your third string quarterback.
It is. Sam Darnold was only 14 of 26 for a 128, no touchdowns, no interceptions. They only ran the ball for 125 yards as a team. The
Seahawks didn't play great.
They didn't. They had a defensive touchdown again, and Ernest Jones, the 5th, had a touchdown there. Yeah, and they kicked 4 field goals. Jason Myers was 4 of 4. They had a long of 56 yards, but yep, they did not play great. So I just got a notification that R.J. Harvey scored another touchdown. That must have gone into overtime there.
It did.
Yep. But the Broncos are up right now, 27-20 in overtime. Looks like the Commanders are going to get the ball back here. There's 6 minutes and 59 seconds left to go there. But rounding out these games, the Chargers beat the Raiders 31-14. That's, not surprising. The Raiders haven't been very good. The Chargers improved to 8-4. Justin Herbert, not a big game. They did get a running game in Vital, 25 carries for a $126. That's something that they've been looking for desperately. I don't know when Amari and Hanson comes back.
Surely it's sometime soon, right? He's been out for 6 weeks now.
Yeah, they really need him. Going down this stretch, the Chargers play the Eagles. They've got the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Cowboys, the Texans, and the Broncos to end the year.
Yeah, they're going to need him.
They need, because that's those are 5 big games against, the Eagles are the ones that are probably playing the least enthusiastic ball right now, I guess you could say, but it's still the Eagles. So they still have a really good team, so you better buckle up and see what you get there. And then the Bills take down the Steelers 26-7. I don't think Aaron Rodgers played this full game. I didn't catch this game in full, but
He only missed one series.
he only missed one series. Okay, he was 10 of 21 for a buck 17, no touchdowns. They ran the ball for 58 yards as a team. They're just terrible. The Steelers, they're
You
just
know,
bad. Yeah.
they
Gosh Almighty! The Bills ran the ball 51 times for 249
yeah,
and a touchdown. That's yeah. James Cook had a day.
their
So
defense is bad, and their offensive line is terrible. It's a travesty. That's a travesty right there. I mean, they were looking to trade for a wide receiver at the trade deadline. They should have been looking for a whole offensive line because they are not good.
yeah, you should. It's funny to think about how they traded away Pickens because they couldn't figure out how to use him, and finds out the way to use him is getting him the ball.
Yeah, it's crazy. And
That's crazy, right?
the thing that also confuses the hell out of me is they went and got Arthur Smith to be their offensive coordinator.
Yep.
Why? Did anybody look at what Atlanta did on offense the last 4 years? I mean, really.
Dynamic playmakers.
I'm disgusted with Pittsburgh. I really wanted Pittsburgh to be good this year. I don't even know if they're going to go 8-8 at this point.
No, they don't look like they're gonna. They're just they can't put it together. Rodgers, I had hopes for Rodgers to finish his career at least in the playoffs, right, and maybe one playoff win, but it just doesn't look like that's what it's destined to be.
Nope.
So that's tough for them. If you look at the current playoff picture right now, uh, barring what happens in the Broncos game, you've got in the AFC. You've got the Patriots in the 1 seed, the Broncos in the 2 seed. Jaguars are in the 3 seed, and then you've got the Ravens at 6-6 in the 4 seed, and then Chargers 5, Colts 6, Bills are in the 7th. On the bubble, you got the Texans, Steelers, Chiefs, Dolphins, and Bengals. But really, the only way the Bengals can get in there is by winning their division. The Dolphins, they have a very outside chance, I guess, of making if they got to run the table completely, of maybe making a wild card spot. And then the Chiefs, Steelers, they're looking at divisional stuff. That comes really hard for either of those teams to catch a wild card team. Right now, it doesn't look like the Chiefs are gonna, for the first time in like a decade, they're not gonna win the AFC West. And then the Texans got a shot of getting to that, either getting in a wild card or catching on their divisional side.
Yep.
While I was looking here, it only gives me the damn AFC. I'm sorry, guys. I should have written this down on my notepad. But if you look at the NFC, like I said earlier, you got the Bears in the 1 seed, Rams are 2, Eagles 3, Buccaneers 4, Seahawks 5, Packers are 6, the Niners are 7. Then you got the Lions at 8, Cowboys at 9, Panthers at 10, and then Falcons at 11. It becomes really hard. All 3 of the wild card teams right now have 9 wins at least. If you even really look at it for the Lions and the Cowboys and Panthers, that's a lot of ground to make up there, coming down towards the end of the line here. So, if the Eagles continue to stumble for some reason, maybe they can catch up in that division, but they're gonna need some help in the wild card spot. Now there are some teams that have really tough, games coming up, and there's going to be some losses in here. I think the Packers and Niners play at one point, so somebody's going to lose there. The Seahawks and Niners still have to play each other. The Rams, I think there's still some divisional games there that they have to play. So there's a lot of there's a lot of ifs there. But yeah, that's how it pretty much works out.
Yep.
So, you got any big news for the NFL?
No, not really. I mean, I'm still shook to my core about the Panthers beating the Rams. I mean, the Rams look like the definitive best team in the NFL, and now I'm changing my tune. So, there's a lot of parity in the league right now. I
Yeah,
mean,
there is.
a whole lot of parity, and then the Eagles being what they are is
Yeah.
it's disappointing, really.
It'll be really interesting to see what happens there. They kind of seem like they have a little bit of falling apart like they did a couple years ago. If they go and lose to this Chargers team, I don't think they will. But if they do go and lose to it, there's going to be. I mean, that's going to be a tough locker room to get around, and especially that city. You know how Philly fans get
Boy,
with things. So
a
that'd
lot
be.
of football left.
I hope they lose. Don't get me wrong. You know me.
I mean, I feel like we've been saying this the last few weeks, but at this point, it seems like they're in a must-win situation, and they're 8-4,
Yeah, 100%. I mean,
which
but
is
I think
crazy.
you look at this. The Cowboys are going to get into a Longhorn situation, and it's going to be, hey, we're one of the hottest teams right now. We should be in there, but they just screwed around too much in the beginning and going to lose that momentum. So it is what it is. You have to pay for your losses at some point. They
Yep.
all come to get. They come to get you at all points. So, anyways, but man, we covered a lot of ground there. We got a lot of ground to cover on when we do our show on Wednesday, especially with those college football playoff rankings. That's going to be the big deal there. We'll have some games to call, both sides of the ball. I mean, the championship games, we'll break those down because they are far and few between, and then we'll get into some NFL too. But yeah, got anything else you want to say to the folks before we sign off here?
I'm good. Hope everybody
Good.
had a happy Thanksgiving.
Yep, we hope. Yeah, hope you had a happy Thanksgiving. That you got to spend with your family. You had a lot of good time off from work to recharge and watch some football. And there's still a lot of other sports going on. You got basketball and hockey and all kinds of stuff. I mean, if you want to hear more of that, let us know. We're always willing to listen. You can drop us a text, a message on Facebook, Instagram, X, whatever you want to do, and we'll be here. So we really appreciate you guys. We hope you have a great week. We will talk to y'all soon. Know that Jesus loves you, and yeah, we'll see you later, guys. Peace.